Hello everybody and welcome to Bitesize Cinema. I'm your host RJ McCready, and some of you listening may know me from another show that I run called Dude Looks Like the 80s. It's a show that I've taken over from a good friend of mine, Ricky Morgan. I've kind of been steering the ship a little bit in his absence, which I've had a whole ton of fun with, so if you haven't listened to that, check that out as well. But the building block for this show is basically I just want to go into all the decades of movies. As much as I love the 80s, I just wanted to sort of jump into the 70s and the 60s, maybe do some old Hammer horror films, go right back to some of the early days of filmmaking and modern day films as well, and obviously movies in the 90s. So I'm going to be covering everything, and the building block of this show is in the title, Bite Size. I'm going to be running like a 20-minute show where, I suppose I'll give you an example. You ever sort of spoken to someone about a movie and you've got into that sort of 20-minute conversation where you've brought up all the good points, all the bits that you liked, the bits that could have been done better, or you said, oh, maybe this actor could have been in this movie, sort of stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm going with this show. So it's a little bit of a podcast where you can sort of delve in and maybe have a listen to a movie that you might not have seen, or a film that you have seen. You just want to go back and think, oh, let's see what RJ McCready's spin is on that movie. So I'll see if I can try and help you guys out on that. So anyway, let's move on. That's a little bit more admin I need to mention here is I am a proud member of Legion Podcast. Mr. Bro Ransel has very kindly let me go under the umbrella of that great network, and please check out all the other shows on there. I'll see if I can try and chuck an advert on the show. Also to mention, a very good friend of mine, Gav Chucky Steele from the podcast on Haunted Hill, has very kindly let me use his music from an album called Abstract 85, which is the music which you will hear in the background of me talking, and the title track as well. So please go and check out his album. It's on iTunes. It's a great album. It's got a real sort of new wave synth about it, so it's a great album. And talking about new wave synth and stuff like that, it's going to be the topic of the film that I'm going to be talking about today, which is, you're going to hear me say this a lot, it's one of my favourite movies. I love it. It is Assault on Precinct 13. I've got to get this in there quick. I'm a massive John Carpenter fan, so he is going to be the sort of launch pad of this show. And I couldn't think of another film to start this show off on because it's got everything in filmmaking. But I'm going to save that. Let's get a trailer in there. Let's get the trailer going, and I'll be back to talk about Assault on Precinct 13 in a bite-sized kind of way. See you guys soon.
Freeze! This is the police. Drop your weapons and place your hands above your heads.
On Saturday, 6 members of the gang known as Street Thunder were ambushed by the police. On Sunday, the warlords of Street Thunder swore a blood oath to avenge their dead. For the gang called Street Thunder, it is a day of vengeance. It's war in the streets.
Oh, Jesus, come on. Come on, I'll give you my money. Just don't hurt me, please. Please.
It's terror in the night. It's the most shattering assault on a police station in history. Assault on Precinct 13.
This is a siege. It's a goddamn siege. You're gonna stay here and hold until somebody comes, okay? We're in the middle of a city, inside a police station.
What does that mean?
They're not afraid to die. Any of them. They want to rip us apart, no matter what it costs. It means to the death.
Precinct 13, cut off, isolated in the middle of a city, as a human wave of street killers turns the night into a nightmare.
war going on down here. We can't find the damn thing.
A white-hot night of hate. Assault on Precinct 13.
And welcome back, guys. So, Assault on Precinct 13. Where do I start with this movie? One of the greatest films ever made for me. This is. So, it was made in 1976 by John Carpenter, a very young John Carpenter who just recently come out from college or university of filmmaking, and he made a film called Dark Star as a student, which was successful. It made some money back, and a independent studio gave him some money to say, go make a movie and you can go and do whatever you want with this film. You've got free rights. And I know a lot of independent film directors out there right now that would love this opportunity. So John Carpenter wanted to make a Western initially, but then he put it into a police precinct style siege type movie. I think it was sort of basing it on like a Rio Bravo movie with John Wayne, which was one of John Carpenter's favourite movies. So the premise of the film is a unlikely partnership between a highway patrol officer, two criminals and a station secretary is formed to defend a dysfunctional Los Angeles precinct office against a siege of bloodthirsty street gang. It is starring Austin Stoker, who plays the unflappable police lieutenant Ethan Bishop, Darwin Johnston, who is Napoleon Wilson, who is kind of like the building block of Snake Plissken in every John Carpenter movie, who does an incredible job. Laurie Simmer as Lee, who is the leading lady. John Carpenter loves leading ladies, and I totally respect him for that, and he really pushes that forward in all his films. And Tony Burton as Wells, who you might have seen in some of the Rocky movies. And Charles Cyphers as Starker. He turns up he was in The Fog, he's the lighthouse keeper or something like that. He turns up in a lot of JC movies. And Nancy Keys, who plays Julie, who is another part of John Carpenter royalty. She is in Halloween. So as you can see here, John Carpenter likes to reuse his cast, and it's almost like he's got a bit of a family running in all his films. The other thing to mention here is Darwin Johnson, Napoleon Wilson character, is, well, it was at the time John Carpenter's neighbour. So you could just imagine that old JC cutting his edge in the garden saying, hey, do you want to be in the movie? You look like a badass. And Darwin Johnson's gone, yeah, okay. You just imagine how that conversation might have gone. But Darwin Johnson does an incredible job in this movie. And that's what I like about this film. The combination of the police and a notorious badass joining forces to basically fight the forces of evil in some ways, you know, with the siege of these punks, this gang. The other thing that John Carpenter has said, he's made no qualms about it, this film is like the Night of the Living Dead. It's also got that sort of horror spin on it as well. And of course, as you can see in this film, it is done on a budget, but it is done very well. I think John Carpenter filmed it in about 20 days or so, which is incredible in today's movie standards, you could say. So moving on to there is a very dark element to this film. JC kills off the Disney kid, which is Kim Richards, and you see her in films like Escape to Witch Mountain, just to name one movie. And she's the little ice cream girl that gets shot by the bad guys in this movie, and it's a bloody horrible scene. But at the same time, it builds that block to say this is what these bad guys in this movie, they just don't care. And that really helps you root for the good guys later on in this film with the siege. And the other clever thing here is what I really like with the bad guys in this film is they are proper bad, and they are kind of like a, how can I put it, almost like a sort of, when you got the zombies in the Night of the Living Dead, it's kind of like the same sort of thing. They're just wave of attack after attack later on. in the movie when they're in the police station, almost like a type of unknown force. So there's another bit of clever film making from the director who is working on a budget, and I feel like as you're watching this movie, you really do feel like there's that sort of threat of the siege. But moving on, the other great thing about this film, let's talk about the film score. I mean, the music is just incredible. When you watch this film, certainly when I watch this film, you got the credits that come on, the red credits. It feels like a real sort of grindhouse feel, and that sort of dum da 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 dum. It's got that. It just immediately draws you in, and that it's almost like a sort of slow burn all the way through the movie from when it starts, and then when you've got the siege, the music just sort of ramps up a bit. And the music, for me, is almost like another character to the movie, which is helping you move along with the story, which is very clever. And also to mention that score was written and produced by John Carpenter, who very famously, it's almost like a signature to his films. He does his own music to his films, apart from obviously The Thing, which was Morricone, another movie I will get into later. So yeah, this is proper, you know, for a guy that's working on a budget, he's done everything. He's also does, John Carpenter has like a pseudonym, so you notice that is at the beginning of the title credits you've got written by Martin Quatermass or John T. Chance. So that is John Carpenter, who is going by another name, and obviously Quatermass is from Quatermass in the Pit, the old Hammer horror film. And John T. Chance is John Wayne's character from Rio Bravo, so that's a clever little sort of homage spin on that. So let me tell you about the bad points of this movie. There just isn't any. I watched this film over and over. I love it. I can't find any. Tell me if you think there is. Put it on the Facebook page. But it's just one of those films. For me, I put my hand on the table and say, faultless movie. Great movie by John Carpenter, one of my favourites. I did actually see John Carpenter a couple of years back in London, and I did say to him, thank you for making Assault on Precinct 13, and he gave me a little grin, which was cool. So, moment I will never forget. But yeah, that is Assault on Precinct 13. I think I have covered everything in a sort of bite-sized way. One other thing I want to mention here is I do like the way the film ends with Lieutenant Bishop and Napoleon Wilson. They become friends in the end, and they walk out side by side after that night of terror. And who knows, maybe Napoleon Wilson was taken down the pub for a few beers to tell Ethan Bishop why people call him Napoleon Wilson. So you never know, and that's what I like. It's just, and that's another common thing with John Carpenter, is that you notice that he never gives you a finalised ending. It's always left on either a cliffhanger or you're guessing. So that is another John Carpenter signature, which I love him for. Let's face it, fantastic. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed that episode. If you haven't seen the film, go check it out. If you have, hopefully it has made you a fan forever, like me. So there you go. But let's tell you about what the next film's going to be. So coming up, I'm going to be doing another film from the 70s, which is called Vanishing Point. Good old Kowalski and his Dodge Challenger. So it's another film that I love from the 70s, so going to be taking a look at that. So look out for that. That should be dropping soon. Hope you enjoyed the episode, guys. Hope that is bite-sized enough for you to enjoy it. And I will see you guys soon. Take care.
If you enjoyed this show, then make sure you check out the other great shows on the Legion Podcast Network, like Cinema Psyops, Cinema Beef, Devour the Podcast, Duncan and Bo Come Correct, Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, Friday the 13th, Get Slayed, The Hellming Power Hour, Hello, This is the Doom Show, Hero Hero Go Show, Kill the Cast, Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, Jerry Hates Action, Legion After Dark, Mental Health, Obsessive Cinema, Discourse, Pick 6 Movies, the podcast by The Cemetery, the podcast on Haunted Hill, the Psychosemantic Podcast, Rick Radio, House of Wax, Dude Looks Like the 80s, Rabbit and Red Radio, The Shadecast, Short Bus Cinema, Two Drink Minimum Commentaries, The VD Clinic, Who Will Survive Horror Podcast, and Witch vs. the Doomsday Clock. With such a wide spread of shows, there is guaranteed to be a niche for you to fall in love with. Horror, politics, movies, books, sex, music, commentaries, health, video games, kaiju, action, news, comedy, and opinions that would most likely get you killed in some parts of the world. We are proud to bring you some of the best podcasting in the world. Check us out at www.legionpodcast.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other dark corner of the internet where podcasts can be found.